So a surrogate is recognised as the legal mother of the child from birth, even if they're not biologically related. And the intended parents, therefore, need to apply for something called a parental order. And they need to do this under the current legislation 6 weeks after the birth of the child to be recognised as legal parents. This can be a long process, can sometimes take up to a year. And this is why the Law Commission has made some recommendations about changes to surrogacy law to try and kind of clarify it and put some kind of safeguarding measures and offer some certainty to people, as the current law can result in situations, for example, where a child has been living with the intended parents since birth and for quite a while, but the intended parents can't actually make decisions on behalf of the child, important things like medical treatment, because they don't have those rights yet. And so the Law Commission have recommended something called the new pathway, which is just one of their recommendations, but it would involve intended parents being recognised as legal parents from birth of the child if certain safeguarding measures were carried out and also kind of protections put in place to try and screen the parties as well. And those certain things would include all parties giving fully informed consent and also having legal advice. And they, in those circumstances, intended parents wouldn't need to apply to the court for a parental order, and instead it would be dealt with via a non-profit surrogacy organisation, which would be licensed and regulated by law. And there's certain impacts on the rights of the parties, obviously, with these recommended changes to the law, which haven't come into force yet. And if they would also include the surrogate would still have the right to withdraw consent, but depending on the timing of this would have an impact on the kind of end result. If they withdrew consent before the birth of the child, then they would be recognised as a child legal parent. But if they withdrew consent after birth but before 6 weeks, which is kind of the cut-off point, then the intended parents would still be recognised as the legal parents, and the surrogate would need to apply for a parental order to have be recognised. And then further, the new pathway requires the screening and safeguarding counselling that I discussed earlier, and independent legal advice, and for there to be a written agreement. And so all of those things kind of provide the parties with the right to those things, which would be built in the law if they chose that pathway. And this obviously enhances their right to those things, and also the right for them to give proper consent or obviously withhold consent as well. And finally, the recognition as legal parents from birth gives intended parents the right to make decisions for the children, for example, the medical treatment and things like that. And that would be from day one of the birth. There are certain risks associated with the approach, which might still encourage intended parents to choose foreign surrogacy arrangements over UK. And they might choose that because foreign surrogacy arrangements are legally enforceable and legally recognised. And it's unknown whether the government's going to take the recommendations of the Law Commission yet, so that's yet to be seen. And if you'd like any further advice about surrogacy arrangements, then I'm more than happy to help, or another member of the Modern Families team.